now it's time to talk about Shinobi 3, Return of the Ninja Master. Released in 1993, this is the last Shinobi game developed for 16-bit hardware. It's also the game I knew the least about, until playing it for this review of course. Joe Musashi is back and he's more ready than ever to take down Zed one more time. Yeah, you're fighting Zed again. There's only one criminal organization in the Shinobi universe it seems. I don't know how they were able to recover so quickly from the last defeat, but something tells me this might be their last comeback. The game returns to the gameplay of Revenge of Shinobi, but refines it in practically every way. However, the timer is gone for good and you no longer have the ability to jump between background and foreground layers, which is a bit disappointing. That was supposed to be a trademark feature in the series. Oh well. You once again have a health bar, but you don't need to rack up points to increase its size. This alone makes the game a lot more forgiving than the other entries, but that's not the only reason. Joe Musashi's moveset has been expanded and you can even make him run by double tapping on the D-pad. He can now do wall jumps and do some kind of ceiling grab that lets him move under platforms and other surfaces. Even though most of the surfaces he grabs are perfectly flat or smooth. That's kinda weird, but Revenge of Shinobi established that Spider-Man exists in this universe, so it works. You can also do a dive kick that can be incredibly easy to abuse during some of the boss fights. And if you do a melee attack when running, you'll do a cool looking slash attack that doubles as a dodge mechanic. And that's not all, you can also block most projectile attacks anytime if you hold the attack button. Even though the power-up item from the previous two games returned, you don't need to use the block mechanic anymore. So as you can imagine, this vastly expanded moveset makes Musashi feel more powerful than ever. In combination with a generous health bar, it definitely makes this game the easiest Shinobi up to this point. Keyword here being easiest. This is not an easy game, although experience with the previous games will definitely impact your skill. Yet I can imagine playing Shinobi 3 too much makes it harder to get used to how much slower and less agile Musashi controls the previous games. There are 7 rounds to clear, each split into multiple sections with bosses and sub-bosses. The transition from one section to the next is fast and seamless, so it can feel like each round is one long level. This is still a game designed to be beaten in one sitting though. And no, this won't take you anywhere near as long as, say, Super Mario Bros. 3 without the magic flutes, so don't worry. The enemy placement is actually very well balanced. There are very few cheap shots or gotcha traps in the first half of the game. Often predicting incoming enemies can be intuitive since there is more of a consistent flow in each level section, and the level design seems to be more built on not betraying the player's expectations all the time, which is almost the reverse of how the first two Shinobi games worked. This is still an arcade-style action game though, as all Shinobi games are, so you'll still get hit or killed from not memorizing some of these sections. But most of the damage you take isn't very high, so losing actual lives from surprise attacks doesn't happen super often. I think there definitely was a bigger focus on spectacle and a bit of a power fantasy going on with the direction of this game. The player gets more time and more chances to keep practicing Musashi's moves, and maybe because the levels are also longer, they thought it was necessary to make the game less punishing. The ninjutsu from the Revenge of Shinobi have all returned, and I don't think I need to explain each of them again. But I will say the 2 attack jutsus can be useful against bosses this time, since they deal a lot of damage. If you keep your power up for boss fights, Ikazuchi is usually the best choice. Until the last couple round bosses, the barrier is more than enough to keep you from getting damage before you finish them off. Maybe there are speedrunners and 1cc players out there who make better use of Fushin, but in my experience, that jutsu is pretty much only useful for one boss. Just like in Revenge of Shinobi. Or maybe it only feels that way to me because I'm unable to do regular double jumps when fighting the third boss. The game has a tendency to put power-ups in crates that you can backtrack to before a round boss if you wish to start the fight maxed up, which is also really generous of them. Adding to the spectacle of the game, there are a couple levels where Musashi is on rails. No, not literally, they've already done that in Revenge. In one section, you ride a horse while enemy ninjas run on foot to attack you. And you can even do a dive kick with the horse. If that's not awesome enough, later you have a surfing level. That's right, Joe Musashi is the real surfing ninja. His transition into a 90s character is now complete. One additional feature I didn't get to make use of is the 6-button mode. The reason I didn't is because I only found out it was locked behind a rather convoluted cheat code involving 2 controllers after I was done playing. This mode lets you use a dedicated button for slashing separately from the kunai throws, and use the mode button to change your selected ninjutsu. You know, they really should include this as an easily accessible option in a modern port, because having a dedicated slash button is awesome. As you can see in the gameplay, the graphics and presentation have improved tremendously. The game makes fantastic use of what appears to be multiple layers of parallax scrolling, providing highly detailed backgrounds. I wonder if this was something that required sacrificing the background jumping mechanic. I tried but couldn't find information online on whether that was really the case. With more room to explore and increased verticality, most levels maintain a good illusion of not feeling like straight narrow corridors, and every section of every round is designed completely differently from the other. Different sceneries, different colors, different layouts, and sometimes the approach of the level design shifts entirely. This helps preventing the game from feeling repetitive at any point, but it can be a double-edged sword. In one level, you have to intentionally trigger some bombs to destroy barriers in your path, which breaks from the more straightforward approach in the other levels and requires just a little bit more exploration. But when looking at the final round, I really hate how it changes the focus to be entirely about the platforming, avoiding hazards that are just everywhere with very little enemies to destroy. And yeah, I suck at this round. I used my best playthrough for this footage, and this is the only level I can never avoid losing lives at. But you know what? This is the last round, so I'm proud of my progress. Sound effects and direction are also refined, about on par with what you could hear in other Sega games coming out later in the Mega Drive or Genesis library. The music is fairly good, with some standouts here and there that will definitely add to my playlist if I can, but it's not as consistently good as the score from Revenge of Shinobi. Still, there are enough good tracks here that I found myself crouching in tempo with the music now and then. In the game, I don't dance like this in real life. Of all the Shinobi games I covered, this is the one I could recommend to anyone who sees the gameplay and goes, "Oh, this looks sick, mate!" It's the most accessible of the classic Shinobi, and the experience from one round to the next never gets old. Much of Musashi's moveset doesn't need to be mastered for someone to beat the game, especially if you lower the difficulty or give yourself unlimited kunai. But being able to pull off the moves, executing complete combos of dive kicks, dash attacks, and kunai throws at a set of enemies makes you feel like a true Shinobi badass. For the more hardcore fans of the series, this game might lose points for being a bit too easy. But if I had to pick one Shinobi game for someone new to the series, this would be the one. 3 must be some kind of magical number for excellent Mega Drive games. I mean, you got Shinobi 3, Thunder Force 3, Sonic 3, Splatterhouse 3, okay, not that one. Now, if you want to play this game through legal means and you don't have a Sega Genesis or Mega Drive, you cannot, because Sega has delisted, nah, just kidding. I mean, the latest Sega Genesis collection was delisted, but you can still play it through the PS2, PSP, Xbox 360 or PS3 collections. Or, if you are subscribed to the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, Shinobi 3 is part of the Genesis Online library alongside the Revenge of Shinobi. Yeah, subscription bad, something Nintendo evil, but the emulation for Genesis Online is superior to those Digital Eclipse collections. But play any way you can, it's your money, it's not my problem. As always, thanks for watching Game Over Hell, take care.